Hi, this is Malia Zimmerman, and I'm here with Ilya Shapiro, and he is a senior.
Senior Fellow in Constitutional Studies at the Cato Institute.
That's right, that's quite a mouthful. We want to ask him a little bit about the Akaka bill because he's been following this issue very closely, and also another important Hawaiian case called Corboy versus Louis. Tell us about the Akaka bill from your perspective.
Sure. Well, when I first heard about it a number of years ago, I couldn't believe it was taking place. What it would do would be to carve out a race-based governing entity to negotiate with the state of Hawaii and the U.S. government about certain economic rights and property transfers based again on this principle of race and ethnicity. It's directly contradictory to the Constitution, and I think it would drive apart Hawaiian society, and not many people hear about it. A lot of congressmen, senators that don't know much about it, they just think it's a parochial Hawaiian issue. But if it's ever allowed to go through, it would set a terrible precedent and balkanize the country.
So why have you taken such an interest in it? Pretty much that sums it up.
I'm a constitutional generalist. When I first started working at Cato a number of years ago, actually, Dick Rowland of the Grassroots Institute here in Honolulu came through the office and wanted to drum up, I guess, awareness and get people like me writing about it. So I wrote an op-ed and got attacked by then Congressman Neil Abercrombie on the floor of the House, and away we went. And now I get to come here to Honolulu and talk about it as well. But it's really an important issue. I mean, right now it's kind of on a back burner because it will never get through a Republican-controlled House, but the way that partisan politics works, if Democrats ever get unified government, that's when it really gets traction. And also, the Bureau of Indian Affairs in the Department of the Interior has been trying to put in certain types of regulations that move towards it, kind of establishing facts on the ground that if a future court case ever came up or Congress was debating it, would be useful in that direction. So even though it's sort of moribund legislatively right now and for the immediate foreseeable future, this is a stalking horse that won't definitively die.
We also have a version of the Akaka bill here in the state as well that was passed last year. So we're in the middle of trying to figure out how that's going to be implemented or how that's going to affect us. But what would be the difference between, say, the state version and the federal version in terms of policy?
Well, contrary to what a lot of people think, the U.S. Constitution does apply in Hawaii. The Supreme Court unanimously 12 years ago threw out the race-based voting qualifications for the Office of Hawaiian Affairs trustees. So I'm not familiar with the specifics of this state legislation that you reference, but certainly under the U.S. Constitution, you can't treat people differently based on race for things like voting or admission to educational institutions, contracting, all these different things. So I'm sure what Hawaii is doing is trying to make statistical analyses and foment cultural groups. And OHA always tries to come as close to the line as possible in creating these sort of race-based, ethnicity-based groups, which in Hawaii just doesn't make sense because it's the most interracial, mixed, the spirit of aloha that I've discovered. What the ethnic demagogues are trying to do is to drive the society in two or more parts, and really doesn't even benefit the native Hawaiians or whoever they're ostensibly trying to create this for.
How much power does Senator Inouye really have to get something like this through?
Well, he is deferred to on Hawaiian issues, obviously, but there are certainly even Republicans who would otherwise be against it, who defer to Hawaii's representatives delegation, what the governor wants, these sorts of things. But there are other senators who would be willing to filibuster such legislation in the Senate. And as I said, given the large Republican majority in the House, right now it's a dead letter.
Okay, what about this other lawsuit, Corboy versus Louis? Tell me about that and can sum it up and where you think it's going.
Well, it's before the Supreme Court right now. The court has the filings before it, and it's called for the views of the Solicitor General, the federal government's head lawyer before the Supreme Court, on this issue, which is a good sign in the sense that they're treating it seriously and considering whether to take the case and set it for full oral argument. The case concerns certain tax exemptions and tax benefits to lands that are leaseholds in lands that are only given to Native Hawaiians and certain other types of people. So
we call those the Hawaiian homelands.
Right, exactly, to the Hawaiian homelands. And other taxpayers, other property owners are saying, well, look, these tax exemptions are race-based, and I want my tax exemption as well. So it's a constitutional issue based on the Equal Protection Clause. The Hawaiian Supreme Court did a curious thing in that it didn't rule on the merits of the constitutional issue. It said that the taxpayers didn't have standing because they weren't eligible for various statutory reasons for these leasehold tax exemptions. But of course, those bases are the constitutional racial classification. So it's all tied into one. The Hawaiian Supreme Court is clearly trying to just avoid taking a stand on a controversial issue. So we'll see what happens at the Supreme Court. I mean, the Supreme Court, the U.S. Supreme Court, doesn't grant very many cases. So it's still more likely than not that they won't accept it. But as I said, it's a good sign that the petition has gotten a lot of amicus briefs. Friends of the court, the Cato Institute filed one of them, and that now the Supreme Court has called for the views of the government.
And people could get more information at your website?
Absolutely, cato.org, cato.org, or just Google the name of the case, Corboy, Corboy, and my name, Ilya Shapiro, and you'll certainly find it.
All right, Ilya, thank you for joining us today.
All right,
All right.
thank you.